Nightcast. Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth brings you the current news from the world today and how it relates to Bible prophecy. Understanding the end-time events leading to the peaceful world tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, friends, and welcome to this October 30, 2014 edition of Nightcast. Molten lava from a volcano erupting on Hawaii's Big Island has been flowing slowly across the island. It's now creeping over houses and farm properties on the Pacific Island. Well, this is our opening story tonight, and friends, there's no commentary with this opening video, so perhaps I should have started that rolling from the beginning of tonight's broadcast, but I'm going to read you that again. Molten lava from a volcano erupting on Hawaii's Big Island, where, many of you have traveled into the Big Island when you've attended the Feast of Tabernacles over in Hawaii. This molten lava has been flowing slowly across the Big Island. It's now creeping over houses and farm properties on the Pacific Island. And with that as the opener, friends, we've got a video I want to play for you next that I had planned to play for you last night, but as some of you who watched the program last night know, our video player hung up toward the end of the program, thankfully toward the end of the program, and I ad-libbed just a little bit extra and then just cut and went ahead and just cut on off early without showing the last couple of videos. But this one, I believe, will be very interesting to you because of what some of you are seeing and wondering about. And of course, many people have their opinions as to why global oil prices have been dropping sharply in recent months. Some of you have been explaining on social media that, it's because we're just now before an election. Well, the logic of that, there's some logic to that, but if you look at the world picture, the prices are dropping not just in the United States, as that explanation would have a tendency to cause an effect. The prices are dropping globally. BBC News has taken a look at why the prices are dropping globally, worldwide, and ask what it would take to stop the drop. In this video, a little 60-second special by Michael Hurst. We play these often. Michael Hurst does an outstanding job of outlining a lot of things. We have to cut the audio because Michael has used music. We've got the license for the video, but we don't have the license for the music on YouTube. So when I put these on archive on YouTube, we get flagged unless I cut the music. So we got to cut the music here, Michael and friends. But what I'll do is I will read the tags. Since there's no music to go along with it, I'll just read the tags, maybe even stop them, because when Michael Hurst makes these 60-second outlines, he gets a lot of information in there quickly, and to do it in 60 seconds, some of these things he puts in there, you have to be a very fast reader. I may slow them down a little bit and stop them. I'm going to try to read them for you as we go. And it starts out in black, so let me see, how am I going to do this? All right, we'll go ahead and put the screen behind us. I'll start it, roll it forward, keep my mic on, and try to read these for you as we go. Friends, are you ready? Here we go. Michael? Crude oil prices have dropped by as much as a quarter in the past 4 months. Oil price fall, here's a graphic for that. Decline in demand, is it a decline in demand or increased supply that's causing the drop in the price? Poor economic performance in China, Brazil, and Europe has fueled a drop in demand. Supply has risen. U.S. production is at its highest for 30 years, partly due to shale oil. Russian oil production is also up, despite sanctions since the Ukraine crisis. Oil exporters club OPEC is pumping more oil too. Output is up in Libya and Iraq despite ongoing fighting. So, when will the forecast change for oil prices? The answer? It'll change when demand picks up or production is cut. And neither seems likely for now. So for those of us who appreciate lower oil prices, that last comment is some good news. Neither is likely to happen for now, so prices stay down for a while, at least till after the United States elections, perhaps. Okay. Well, once in a while something is humorous in the news, and it's also happy that the oil prices are down. If some of you need to do some travel, this might be a wonderful time to get it done. Well, you can buy, if you're going to travel by automobile or something that uses, gasoline, might be a very good time for you to be traveling right now, my friends, while the prices are down. And there just may be a situation where I may need to be traveling here or there, maybe to North Carolina, maybe to Texas, maybe I'm just throwing something else in there, maybe to California, maybe to Alaska, who knows. I have to find a way, though, that I can keep up this evening news program related to the Bible and prophecy that I've made a commitment to, friends, since the days I was helping 50-year Alabama minister Robert Collins to do this program by my operating on the backside of the camera, helping him research it and put it together for the day, search out the news we'd play for that evening against the criteria. We used 14 pieces of criteria to determine which pieces we'd put in the news. When we first were doing it, we went through a major operation of analyzing news between the two of us. And I've gotten now where I still go through a lot of news through the day, but I do some heavy prayer on it, and I can pretty quickly say, hey, these are the ones. It seems like God is inspiring the thinking in my head. Use these, and it comes easy. Now, tonight we're doing a very short broadcast. I do want to throw the chart up on the screen for just a moment that we often put up on our screen, and the first four of these are the primary things. Out of the 14, these first four seals, they are the primary considerations for the news that we play on this program, because the very things that Jesus Christ told us to watch, let me come out for just a moment, the things that Christ told us to watch when he gave us the instruction in Luke 21, verse 36, were the first four seals, because when he said watch, what he had just described were the first four seals. And he says, if you watch these things, watch these first four seals, and pray always regarding these things you're seeing each day in these four seals, then the promise is that you may be accounted worthy to escape the fifth seal, which is now the next major event in prophecy to happen and occur. Let's read it together. Verse 36 of Luke 21, where Christ says, let me back up and just say, Luke 21 is a parallel chapter to Matthew 24, also a parallel chapter to Mark 13. Those three are in harmony together. As you study the harmony of the Gospels, you'll see Matthew 24 lining up with Mark 13 and Luke 21. And in verse 36 of Luke 21, in the first part of Luke 21, as in the other two Gospels, Christ is answering the question the disciples ask of him, what shall be the sign of your return? Another part of that question, he answered real quickly, but the rest of that question was, and what would be the sign of your return, your second coming? And Christ said, when you see these things accelerate, when you see, as he was explaining in plain language, what he was explaining was, let me put this back close up, he was explaining what Revelation describes as the first 4 of 7 seals. And as they're depicted in Revelation, those first 4 seals are depicted by 4 horses and 4 horsemen. And the horses are different colored horses. Revelation depicts the first seal as a white horse, which Jesus Christ describes in plain language through the gospel writers as religious deception. He said, take heed that no one deceive you religiously. Many would come in my name, saying that I, Jesus Christ, am indeed and in fact the Christ, and yet, even while saying that, they would deceive many. And then for the second seal depicted in Revelation as a red horse, Christ said there would be wars and rumors of wars and world war, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And as of 100 years ago this year, 1 century ago, mankind saw the beginning of world war as it began with round 1 called World War I that began in 1914 and ran through 1918, treaty signed ending it in 1919, then a long recess until the end of the 1930s and into the 40s, and through 1945 we saw round 2 of World War. And preceding World War, we saw in 1936, as I was describing last night, we saw Mussolini invade Ethiopia and then lay the big claim that, as you can see on the top right side of this chart, or actually toward the bottom, let's go down there to the bottom right side of this chart. Preceding this side of the chart has the 7 kings, which are the remaining 7 of the 10 horns of the beast of Revelation 17. And those remaining 7 horns are 7 kings. And when we pick up in Revelation 17, verse 10, there Christ, through the Apostle John on the Isle of Patmos in a vision, Christ reveals that at the time of this verse, verse 10 of Revelation 17, the present tense time of this verse is between 1936 AD and 1945 AD, where Christ is saying, 5 are fallen. The 5 that began, let me pull this back out for a moment, the 5 that began in 554 AD with Justinian and that ran for 1,260 years through Napoleon in 1814, from 554 to 1814, 1,260 years, there were 5 kings. And so, ending in 1814, with those 5 kings having reigned successively, and then from 1814 on, those 5 were fallen, as Revelation explains us. Let's go back down to that bottom part of the chart. And Revelation at that point, Revelation verse 10 of Revelation 17 is saying, 5 are fallen. But what makes this present tense for the period between 1936 and 1945, when God's end-time apostle and faithful servant, and yes, end-time Elijah, but everybody won't understand that. I'm not going to go into the detail of that tonight, but some of you know that factor. And even though that job may or may not have been finished, it will be finished through the man God started it if God has to resurrect that man again. And of course, the one who will conclude the real restoration of all things is Jesus Christ himself, will conclude the job of Elijah when Christ returns and ushers in and restores the kingdom of God to this earth. That'll be the real and full restoration of all things, when the kingdom of God is back here reigning and ruling upon the whole earth, and all the governments of man have been replaced by Jesus Christ in the line of authority that Jesus Christ will have through the 12 apostles and David the king over them, and then for different divisions, the end time apostle will be over most of us, and will, when the lines of authority come down, when we are spoken to, it'll most likely be by and through Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong, whom God placed over those of us of this end time, and God proved that man to be the end time servant of us all by withholding this very special knowledge about who the sixth head of the Holy Roman Empire will be, as mentioned in Revelation 17:10. I'm only partway through that verse, but I have to give you some background on that. And this verse, and even what was said in Daniel, of course, this verse wasn't written when Daniel was alive, but even the things in Daniel, the book of Daniel, that relates to Revelation 17, Daniel would have given his left toolie to know what these things meant. Friends, you know that, and I'm going to come back out here for just a moment, and then we'll go back to that part of the chart. Daniel would have given anything to know, hey, what is all this stuff that I'm writing down for people? What does it mean, Father? And God said, go your way, Daniel. These things are sealed unto the time of the end. And so even Daniel, who wrote down things that relate to this, couldn't understand it. And neither could anyone, including the Apostle John, who wrote down what he wrote in Revelation 17, verse 10, that we're going through. I'm going to read the rest of it in a moment, but let me put that back up as I read this here to you. Even John, the Apostle John, couldn't understand what he wrote about in this verse where God says, let's read that verse where he says, let me flip over there, Revelation 17, verse 10, where God says, through the Apostle John, in a vision on the Isle of Patmos, and verse 10, Revelation 17, there are 7 kings. And again, these 7 kings are the remaining 7 horns of the 10 horns in Revelation 10. There are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is. Now, that's the part that makes that one is the part that makes this, that's present tense language. One is, the present tense verb is. And there's only one time in history, it was a period of 9 years, from 1936 to 1945, that one was actually alive and reigning at that time. That was Mussolini, who, after he invaded Ethiopia, he made the claim himself that he had revived the Holy Roman Empire. And in fact, he did, even though it was a small revival and a very short-lived revival. From 1936 to 1945, that's when Mr. Herbert Armstrong was in, you could say, his prime of a sort, an early prime. He actually had a long time prime, because after 1953, when his voice began to ring out from Radio Luxembourg out of Luxembourg around the world, the work God was doing through Mr. Armstrong went international instead of just in the United States for the previous 19 years. Then it went 19 years more internationally. And then God had Mr. Armstrong visiting person to person, face to face, kings and princes around the world. And God was showing, as he revealed this revival of the Holy Roman Empire, as he revealed that and who it is, that it was Mussolini, as God revealed that through Mr. Herbert Armstrong, God was saying, this is how I reveal to you who are my important servants, my faithful servants, my apostle for the latter day. I do it through this, revealing this most significant, this very important prophecy of one is. And it was Mr. Armstrong's voice who announced that, and I don't care who knows it now, Mr. Armstrong was the father of that information. It was the servant through whom God gave that information. And he gets the honor of being that servant God used for that, and that shows you what a position God put Mr. Armstrong in. And Mr. Armstrong would sometimes say, "Brethren, some of you aren't getting it." And one of the things, brethren, we were not getting, let me come back out and here as I talk to you face to face. One of the things we were not getting, brethren, was the fact that God was using Mr. Herbert W. Armstrong in a most significant way as the end time apostle of God. Some of us we were taking that very much for granted. We were taking it very lightly. Oh, and Mr. Armstrong, you old man. And we know what he knows. Well, we know what he knew because God gave it to us through Mr. Armstrong on a silver platter. God made Mr. Armstrong work for it. God made Mr. Armstrong be obedient to the things that we were given on a silver platter. God made Mr. Armstrong and his wife Loma be obedient to it without their understanding it all, but just knowing that God said, do it. And they, on faith, they did it, even though they didn't fully understand it. And they were mocked by a lot of people for doing it. But then God opened up the understanding to them in it. And as he did, and as God began to call many other hundreds and thousands of people, where they were able to give what these things they had to do on faith without understanding it, they were able to give the understanding on a silver platter to us. And we say, oh yeah, that makes real good sense. Well, yeah, it makes real good sense when you got the comic book in front. Well, not comic book, I did. When you got the puzzle put together in front of you. I was just trying to say, when you got the book in front of you, that when it's all put together in front of you, when the jigsaw puzzle, all the pieces are all spread out, it looks like a mess, a confusing mess. But when somebody has sat there and worked hours and hours and hours faithfully putting together the puzzle and working all the pieces and say, oh, it doesn't fit here, oh, it does fit here, and they've worked it through for you, you just come and look at the picture all put together. You say, well, yeah, that's a picture of a lake and a canoe and a tree and, whatever's there. Easy to see. And in fact, so easy to see, you just take it for granted and say, well, yeah, this is what all that is. Well, okay, let's suppose you'd walked in the room before that puzzle was put together and all you had was a bunch of pieces down there. You walk and look at it and say, I don't see anything here yet. Just a bunch of old cut up pieces of puzzle. Anyway, friends, God gave us that information through Mr. Armstrong. He gave it to us on a silver platter in such a way that many of us have taken that information for granted. We've taken it lightly. Some of us have even allowed other people to come along and mock the truths of God and cause some of us to treat it so lightly we don't even believe these wonderful truths of God that were restored and given to us on a silver platter. Some of us need to be on our knees repenting with much prayer and fasting, lest we find ourselves amidst the great tribulation left behind while God took those who were of a Philadelphia attitude in mind to a place of nourishment, protection, final training, safety, over in an area that triangulates between the land of the children of Ammon and Edom, and one more over there that Daniel 11 describes that's just to the east of the waterway that runs between Lake Tiberias and the Dead Sea. That happens to be where Petra is, although God doesn't say it'll exactly be to Petra, but the description, and when you see the factual layout of Petra, you could see how God could cause the flood that Satan sends after the woman to be swallowed up in that narrow passageway, and how his people could be protected there, but it could be anywhere in that area. And that's area is triangulated in a description that says during the Great Tribulation that area will be protected while the rest of the world is subject to the power of the beast. And we're watching that beastly power to be resurrected in a seventh and final head. Let's go back to the chart and we'll explain the rest of the verse. One is occurred between 1936 and 1945. That was Mussolini, as he revived the Holy Roman Empire as the sixth head of that empire for 9 short years between 1936 and 1945. Now there's been a long respite, and we're waiting for the seventh and final head to rise out of that bottomless pit and to ascend from the pit. And when he does, the World War III will begin, the martyrdom of the saints will begin, the great tribulation will begin, and that'll be the time of this one yet to come. Well, I've got a question mark over there. We don't know who that beast is yet, and we don't know for sure who the false prophet who will ride that beast is. It could be Pope Francis, could be another pope. Comes out of the closet, one that was a pope before, or somebody we haven't even seen yet. We don't know. We have to watch news and events daily, but the way things are shaping, this could happen rapidly overnight. Let me come right back on out of here. The next thing we're watching with eager anticipation is the talk that Pope Francis will give on November 29 before the European Parliament in Strasbourg. He's been invited to speak there on November 29. He has accepted that invitation to speak there before the European Parliament. That's kind of an exceptional thing as this European Union comes together, and here's the Pope coming before them, Pope Francis coming before them on November 25, at their invitation to talk to them. So that'll prove interesting. He's also going over to Turkey and talking to the religious leaders over there. Some things kind of happening behind the scenes, and I hope God will reveal that information through the news we're able to get our hands on, and just see what connection and all that will have in bringing together what will ultimately be 5 countries or regions from the west and 5 from the east that give their power to the beast, to the new emperor, the seventh and final head of the Holy Roman Empire, whom the Pope will crown in a coronation ceremony in Frankfurt, Germany, inside the Emperor's Hall. That's the way it's always been done. That's the way it'll be done again in the future. Friends, I got one more story before we finish it up tonight. I'm trying to give you the outline of what we're really, really focusing down to watch for in our news, so you'll, with a good foundation of, that's what we're watching for. That's how all these pieces of news are shaping together, as you see it shaped together. When you know what we're looking for, the foundation of it, even though we don't know all the details of who's who just yet, when they do start to fall in place, when we know what the foundation is and we're looking for it, we'll see it. We'll see it fall together, and it may happen, boom, 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 very rapidly and very quickly. Our last news story for tonight, friends, we go to Sierra Leone, which, as you know, if you've been following the news, it has one of the world's highest infant mortality rates, and the Ebola outbreak is likely to push it even higher. Health officials, and friends, this story is I wanted to close on this because this should really get to your heart when you hear the details of this story. It'll hopefully end your evening tonight, where when you go to bed, you will be able, with real teeth and heart in your prayer, be able to pray, "Oh God, thy kingdom come." Health officials say almost all pregnant women infected with Ebola, along with their unborn babies, die from the disease. The Voice of America's Adam Bales has more in this report from Sierra Leone.
Kailan District, Eastern Sierra Leone, the country's first and largest Ebola treatment centre. Doctors Without Borders has brought in midwife Ruth Kaufman to tend to 3 pregnant women suffering from the disease. Kaufman says there have been no reported cases of pregnant mothers and unborn babies surviving Ebola in Sierra Leone. Authorities do not know how many have died already.
Especially in outbreaks, there are some groups of people that are more vulnerable than others. And what we see with Ebola is that if women who are pregnant contract Ebola, that they have almost 100% mortality rate.
The Aid Group's treatment centre has set up a specialised ward for these pregnant mothers, says Doctors Without Borders' Axel van den Eyck.
We have pregnant women. We have currently 3 pregnant women in our centre, and we have to deliver those women, so we have a midwife. We have been on standby since yesterday because a delivery is of course a very high risk operation to carry out.
Kumba Sakila survived Ebola, but her 24-week-old fetus did not. She has been at the treatment centre 3 weeks, waiting to deliver the dead child she is still carrying. Midwife Ruth Kuffman says pregnant women need special 24-hour care, but caring for patients with Ebola is an extra challenge.
The whole way the Ebola treatment centers work and the way we can give medical care is very difficult because you can't spend a lot of time in with people, you can't spend a lot of time talking, you can't spend a lot of time, providing really one-on-one care, so it makes it challenging in that way too.
The Ebola outbreak is straining an already overburdened healthcare system in a country still recovering from a devastating civil war, says Kuffman.
This outbreak is, first of all, they've lost a lot of really good health professionals. It's decimating the health infrastructure. It's going to impact everything from food production to, family security to trust of the government to economy. So, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to see Sierra Leone having to fight another battle.
The long-term impact of the Ebola outbreak on West Africa's maternity and infant mortality rates is still unknown. What seems certain is that the country's healthcare system remains crippled for now. Adam Bales for VOA News, Kailan, Sierra Leone.
We want to thank both the BBC News and the Voice of America, which is funded. The Voice of America is funded by the U.S. federal government. The BBC has agreed to share Ebola-related material with Voice of America because of the difficulties faced by media organizations reporting the crisis. Friends, that's it for our Thursday night report of Nightcast. We're off until Sunday night now on Nightcast. I am here on the weekends for those of you who know about that on another channel. Otherwise, those of you who tune in just for Nightcast, God willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll see you again Sunday evening. Until next time, friends, your host for Nightcast, Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth, saying so long and good night, friends.
You have been watching Nightcast with Stephen Lloyd Gilbreth. Nightcast can be seen Sunday through Thursday nights here on cogtv.org. Tonight's program is also available anytime on demand in the cogtv.org video archive.